BREWtallyspeaking podcast is proudly sponsored by Rockabilia.com. For over 30 years, Rockabilia has been the go-to destination for all things band merch. With over 500,000 items in their online store and collaborations with today's hottest bands, you're sure to find something you love. Use our code BREW10 at checkout and take 10% off your total order. So go pick up your favorite new piece of merch now over at Rockabilia.com. And now, on to the show.
Say you have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing. This rings true because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up. It's really hard, and you have to do it over a sustained period of time. So if you don't love it, and if you're not having fun doing it, you're gonna give up.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the BREWtallyspeaking podcast. I am your host, John, and this episode's guest is Esjay Jones of We Are Pigs, of KittiePig, the non-alcoholic beer that she does with Morgan Lander of Kittie, as well as being a producer of so many different types of bands. It was a chat I was really looking forward to. I think anybody who gets kind of into this space, especially when it seemed like from the press bio that the ladies were so hands-on in not only the idea of what the beer would be, but literally working with the brewery and kind of being a part of the process of making it. I will definitely preface, if you want to hear more about the kind of nuances to beer making, I would go check out the Vox and Hops episode with her and Morgan. Matt's a lot better, has a better understanding of those kind of things. And to me, as much as I love beer, as much as I love a craft cocktail, and a lot of things, I think that sometimes my fandom or appreciation of the thing kind of goes a little bit just more than surface level. Like with a beer, I couldn't tell you, and this is maybe what puts me off, and maybe it's coming from the music space with, being metal and hardcore and all that, and I feel like there's an elitism already based on various things that don't honestly matter. But I feel like as a whole, I feel like that's sort of the beer community too. Like I can't tell you how many times I would go out with various friends who are really into it, also do home brewing and stuff like that, and you would just be like, I'm not going to drink that because I don't like mosaic hops. I don't like Chinook hops. I don't like this thing that's in part of the fermentation process. And to me, it's like, that's so asinine of a way to approach things. It's like, I guess I can understand based on your palate that it's like, okay, over the course of however many beers I've had, I realize the thing I don't like about the beer is this, and that's the hops. And obviously, it's a huge part of the beer making process. So I understand it. But the grand scheme of things, I just feel like, don't be that dick. Just try the beer. Maybe this is the one that tastes better and will make you realize that maybe you do like mosaic hops. You just don't like the way everyone else has done it. Or maybe more to the point, and maybe this is why a lot of the people who are homebrewers also say this shit, because maybe the shit you make with mosaic hops sucks. How's that for an idea? Maybe you're part of the problem. But it was really cool getting to talk to Esjay and kind of seeing how maybe her mind, as she works through production and writing songs and so forth, and just maybe how that parlays into something like this, where it's a business, it's something based on formulas and recipes and all those kind of things, and past experiences of what you do or don't want and like in the product, and kind of picking her brain about it. Because to me, I feel like I'm a firm believer you never know where inspiration is going to strike for something, and just kind of being the willingness to do and try so many things, I think allows you to kind of pull from so many experiences, maybe not realizing where they're going to end up helping you down the road. I can't tell you how many times from my past of working in kitchens or managing people or so many different experiences has parlayed into something else I'm doing. I'm like, oh, well, actually the experience I have from doing this thing oddly works and helps me right now. So it's always an interesting thing to just kind of see how people's minds work, especially those of us that I feel like are workaholics and don't enjoy downtime very much. So all of that said, let's get into my conversation with Esjay, and I'll talk to you on the other side of it. So it feels apropos to start off with one of these. This will
Cheers!
be my first sip, so honest
Oh
reaction. So
boy. Well, I'm gonna open mine too.
you know, it's weird. I was expecting with it being more of like a blonde for it to, especially because what is it, Logan? No, Saskatoon. Is that how you say it? Saskatoon.
Very cheers. I know it's not a kitty pig glass, but cheers.
Do you have those already now?
Not yet, but we
Oh,
should.
okay.
Working on it.
Okay. Well, I guess this is just as good of a place to kind of jump into it, but for those that maybe aren't aware of who you are and what you've done, you know, obviously being a producer and a multi-instrumentalist and vocalist and doing a bunch of things, how was it to quote unquote produce a beer? How did you find that process?
This is not my first time producing a beer. I did just before the pandemic. I did a extremely potent, super juicy IPA with Alien Ant Farm.
Okay.
And that was super fun. It was 9%, so it was deadly. And then a few years later, after Morgan and I have collaborated on the song Mute during the pandemic, we just had this idea of doing a non-alcoholic beer, and it's all just come to fruition so fast. And it's been great because both Morgan and I love beer, but we love super light beers, lagers, pale ales, blondes. And we also wanted to make sure that we were doing something super niche and that wasn't in the market already. So the Saskatoon flavor it's tart and crisp, and it's not heavy. It's if you're a big IPA drinker, you're not going to like this beer. So it's an all day drinking festival beer. It's, you know, you could easily smash like 10 of these and just be feeling light, and it captures who we are, I think, personality wise. Like maybe a little dark on the outside, but light and light.
Well, I think for me, like what gets interesting, you know, just being a fan of, you know, I often joke, I wish I ate as well as venturously as I drink. I'll pretty much drink anything within reason. Even famously, Mark from Nothing More always tries to get me into sours, which I'm into now, but he always tries to get me into the pickle beers, and those just instantly give me heartburn. So not even worth it.
I haven't tried any pickle beers yet, so I need to do that.
To me, they're absolutely disgusting. But they are like one of his go-to. We do beer trades and stuff, so usually when I find them, if they're not something he's had, I'll bring them out and have him try these gross ass pickle beers. But it's a thing where I think, to me, like, you know, this almost, I think for lighter drinking beer, it's interesting that the craft beer world is kind of starting to, I feel like, notice that people are looking for something like that, especially concert goers, and especially out here in Michigan, where I live. You know, we have Bell's, and a couple of summers ago, they put out probably one of my go-to easy drinking beers, which was they called it Lighthearted. It's an IPA, but it's a lighter version of their Two Hearted, which is supposedly one of the nation's like leading IPAs, like I said, in the nation. So to kind of have a nice, easy drinking craft beer, there wasn't really anything like that on the market, and I haven't really seen much since. And so, like, when reading the press bio, that was kind of your initial MO, was to try to find something that breaks in. And I hate to kind of say it like this, but I think, you know, this might appeal to a demographic that I think maybe beer is overlooking, which is kind of the women.
That's exactly what our mind and our thoughts behind crafting this is there really isn't, like, what is the point of brewing something that already is?
Right.
So there this flavor profile is definitely missing. And I think for American market, like the Saskatoon berry is, it takes you a little while to get into it. When we first started drinking this, I was like, oh, because it was a flavor profile that I've never tasted before. But as you start getting through the first pint, it becomes more balanced. And by the end of it, you're like, I need another one. And now, and strangely enough, I hear that from a lot of the drinkers. Like at first sip, they're like overwhelmed by the berries, super tart, really dry, wasn't sure about it. By halfway through, I was like, man, I could crush 10 of these.
Yeah.
So it's the feedback is pretty much being consistent. And I like that. I like that you have to, it's something different. It's something, there's nothing that tastes like it on the market. It's kind of like a blueberry, and it's a nutty blueberry kind of flavor, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I would almost say more of like a buttery flavor to a degree. Like I'm kind of getting from like the blonde probably. I think the question I just kind of was thinking of as you were saying that is more of having worked with another band getting into this space, I think there's sort of a misconception when people do this, and sometimes it's nothing more than just slapping a name on a product that already was going to exist versus getting in with somebody and really from, the process of what are you looking for? What flavors do you want? Was that something with the Alien Ant Farm beer, at least, that you kind of did the same thing where you were involved from the jump, or was that more of kind of what I just kind of said, where it's kind of like hey, we would like to do something, we found someone, you already have something, let's just slap our name on it and cross promote?
No, with the Alien Ant Farm beer, we walked into a packing house brewery in Riverside, where the boys are from, and said, like, let's craft a beer together. Let's create. And the guys are all big IPA drinkers, so they had a very specific flavor profile that they wanted to go for. So sitting with them, talking with the head brewer, and I think that's a part of the process. We did a little differently with this first pass of the beer. These first cans, the first batch is a special edition because the brewery in Canada had a bunch of flavor profiles and and said, pick where you want to be, and then we'll brew it from there. And this was just Saskatoon Blonde, just felt right for us. From a branding point of view, from a flavor profile point of view. And as we're moving forward, we're going to tweak the recipe and flavor profile a little bit more and listen to feedback. So yeah, I think being involved and brewing the beers is definitely a part of the production, and we're excited about that moving forward too.
How interesting throughout the process between both of the instances of, the one you did with the Alien Ant Farm guys and now this one, how surprised were you that the process maybe mirrors or mimics songwriting, producing, production, and all that kind of stuff?
Wow. I mean, that's such a great question, because I think brewing is it's such a emotional process. Maybe people don't think of it that way, but it's like every little bit from the mash to the ingredients. Like, are they organic? Like, is it from Germany? Are they where? Every single little thing is an ingredient and detail is thought out into making this flavor profile and the color and the notes. So it really is similar to that process, that you kind of bring everything when you're in the room on that day. And I think maybe that's why small batches change a lot. Like there's maybe those little inconsistencies, because it really is how you're feeling in the day, like how the energy you're putting into it. Like little things change here and there, which is Absolutely. Kind of a part of the fun with craft beer. And songwriting and production, same thing. There's only certain things you can control.
Well, it's like, it was kind of weird in a very, I don't even know, a fortuitous moment, but like just a really interesting thing today. you know, as I was saying to you earlier last week or at the end of last week, for reference, I work at a screen printing place and I am in charge of mixing and making all the inks, setting
Oh,
up all the jobs and stuff
cool.
like that. And so what gets interesting is for me learning that certain things, like, you know, there's a certain color that I was thinking of that I learned when I started. Like the color was inconsistent. We could never get it to look the way it was. And everyone just kind of settled on what it became. And so I was trying to figure out, like, why doesn't this work? And kind of looking at the formula a while back, you know, one of the colors in it was more of a pigment and there was so little of it that I was like, I wonder if I made this in a smaller batch, if it would
Wow,
react differently. And
totally.
so I learned with this one ink, I can only make it in 1,000-gram batches to make the color be the way it's supposed to be. Because for
Oh,
whatever
wow.
reason, when I make it at 2,000 or above, it doesn't, that like electron yellow doesn't react
Wow.
accordingly. And so today, even, I was sort of, you know, thinking about like kind of loose questions I was going to ask about the process of making a beer. And especially when you're making small batch stuff, you know, obviously things can change, whether it be just the temperature or a million variables go into it. And like you said, even with songwriting, you know, maybe you're just not feeling great that day. You're preoccupied. So like your fluidity of how you're playing or whatever changes. So today, like Press was running a job that we've ran several times, haven't ran it in a few months. And they were like, this color's all wrong. And I was like, and they brought me the swatch that they were working on. And I'm like, this is this color? And they're go, yeah. I go, there's no fucking way. There is no fucking way that whatever you're doing something wrong. It's in the wrong screen. But this color is like a darker, like almost like a burnt orange kind of a
Well,
color.
wild.
And I go, and it's coming out like bright orange. And I go, there's no fucking way that you are like, there has to be contamination somewhere. Either you grab something, but there's no way that, because I literally took a thumb thing, put it on a white t-shirt, and I go, and even comparing the colors, like there's just no way. And so I went out to the press. I'm working on it, trying to figure it out with them. It's in the right screen. It's in the right location. There's nothing going on. They sped up the squeegees and stuff. And then what they found was on the back end, because they didn't clean their squeegees correctly, I was right. It was being contaminated with the color that had been in it before. And so when it was just running, it was running a mixture of these two colors. And the other contaminated color was the dominant color. And it was just one of those things, like I felt really good walking away going like, I fucking knew it. There's no way like my shit was wrong.
Totally.
But it was just kind of this interesting glimpse for a second of just remembering that it's like things can change the outcome of something, even when you have a formula or a formula for success or a formula for songwriting or whatever, that just one little thing can change something. And then it makes you have to go back to the drawing board and figure out what's wrong in the process.
Totally. And I also think it comes down to having partners that you trust, you know, like a brewmaster that you trust and that your communication is so clear, that everything down to the color comes out correct. And it's such an arduous and specific process. Like just learning when the first time we're a part of brewing the batch at Packing House in Riverside, it's a science and it's so particular, and it's kind of like baking, I guess, in a certain way, because you can't just throw things in and hope for the best. It's like it's very, very specific.
Although sometimes that's happy accidents are where really interesting things happen though too. I mean, I'm sure you, from more of your musical background side of things, have probably stumbled across someone hitting a roadblock of just something's not right in writing a song in the pre-pro phase. And then they just happen to maybe flub a note or put it in the wrong place. And you're like, no. What was that? That was real interesting. That adds some new character. It adds a nuance. Let's explore that.
Totally. Happy accidents are the best accidents. And you're right. Sometimes the best moments in production and songwriting and engineering happened when it wasn't what you were expecting.
Are there any examples that you can think of off the top of your head where maybe something like that happened and ended up becoming part of the final, like the part you hear, like as a final product?
Sure. I mean, I feel like there's so many moments that has happened. Can I think of one off the bat? One thing you should know about me is that my memory is awful. It must be misspent childhood, hence some non-alcoholic beer action. But I think it's always like that. I think finding guitar tones often are happy accidents, because you go in and sometimes you just have like a wall of amps to try, and it could just be like some random, like the shittiest guitar that you never expected to be using with an AC30 or some kind of vintage amp, and the tone is just like, whoa, was not expecting that. So it happens all the time.
What as I say, I think Jack White has kind of proven that, or proved that, Jesus, almost 20 years ago now with White Stripe stuff, where it's like, playing through the shitty Silvertone that was just a shitty Sears guitar that probably cost collectively $125.
So crazy. I think there's something so important, and I am continuously learning that lesson, is like to get out of your own way when creating, because I think a lot of the time, especially with modern music, is like we're overthinking things. It's like, do we need to stereo mic this guitar? Do we need to stereo mic the amps? Like, do we need... And like a lot of the time, our favorite records throughout history, they shoved a mono microphone up and just were like, hit record, that's it. And I think a lot of the process for creatives is not to overthink.
Well, I think that
it happened.
Well, I was going to say, ironically, that's the thing I ended up going to therapy for overthinking things and trying to solve all the hypothetical what ifs in life and like problems that didn't exist. But it's weird because then it's like you're always like taught, like, always be prepared for anything and everything. And you're like, well, kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. But it is a thing that gets kind of interesting, because I feel like, even in songwriting, I think that's always been something I've gravitated toward in having friends who locally and even beyond now, where it's sometimes I always feel like, the case, like the demo always wins, because it's like, that's when it was fresh and you were excited about it versus demoing it to death. And I think even, the thing that gets interesting to me is, listening to choices that may seem very mundane and shouldn't have as much of an effect on the overall product at the end, but just, like something like an acoustic guitar. I remember hearing a story. I don't remember who the producer was, but they were working with like an indie band or whatever. And the song was kind of sad, and the way that the person mixed the acoustic made it sound like it was really bright, and the guy who, like, the engineer or whatever, is like, this is all wrong, man, you fucked up the whole vibe of the song just by how you mix the acoustic. And he's like, this is a somber song, you want it to kind of be bigger and not so bright and like all these things. And it's something that, like, if you're not really understanding or pay attention to those things, it's wild how just one little thing like that can drastically change a vibe of a song or how it comes out.
Seriously, like, just talking about acoustic guitars, I mean, that can be something that you just wrestle with forever. Like, you've got one guitar like aiming at the 12th, one mic aiming at the 12th fret, and then like you're trying to capture the body and some room. And then you think about like the Fleetwood Mac records or a lot of those records. It was just like the Sony, I think it was
the Neve
50, which is just like a lapel mic on the inside of the guitar. And it was like, great, captured it, move on. And those guitars sound insane. And I think there's a lot with life as well. Sometimes we need to learn to get out of our own way and just move forward. Or run with that idea. Like that's what KittiePig was all about. It's just a crazy idea that we ran with, but well executed ideas are powerful ideas. Not all ideas are great ideas.
Well, I guess maybe that's an interesting question to ask you. How have you learned to navigate that, to know that not every idea you have is a great one, and not waste more time on that bad idea?
I mean, I don't think, let me rephrase that, because maybe that came out wrong. Like, I don't think, I really do believe that all ideas are good ideas, but only some ideas should you chase, because it's about the execution of things. And sometimes it's just an idea cannot be executed in a way that's going to make it successful. And I think knowing, again, getting out of your own way, not being stubborn, going like, man, that was such a great idea. Maybe it's the wrong time, place, lifetime, and to be able to walk around that. You once in a lifetime, you get ideas like KittiePig, where within 4 months you sell out your first batch, which I think is wild. Like this was just an idea from two women that love metal, that have been in the music industry for 25 plus years, that love beer and wanted an option that screamed us. And people are gravitating towards it, and I think it's really nice to see that affirmation. So it helps, when your ideas are affirmed from positive support.
I always love the idea of, I guess, how does one personify themselves in another space? So in this, there's, I always like the idea of like, what would you taste like? And it doesn't have to be beer. It could be food. Like some people like present themselves in a dish and it's bright and colorful and, whatever, like very homey, or, whatever other like adjectives you want to use to just describe that person. And to me, like, I always find that to be kind of an interesting process, because I feel like there's so many avenues that it could go. But when you're working with two people, like, I would say, obviously, from the sounds of it, you're trying to find the common ground between the two of you. But taking it a step further, as a solo thing, what would you what would be a beer that you would think would personify you? And then I'll even flip it and say, is there a song that you feel personifies you?
Whoa, big questions, man. I think any light beer, like I love a light lager, love a blonde. This I really do feel like we have captured, if I had to, and this is not a sole project, so it's hard to say if I'm capturing me, but I feel like we 100% captured everything that I would hope to capture from this. And I think we did it on both sides. It's just it's just worked out that way. It's so great. Food wise, I would be sushi all day. Sushi and Saskatoon blonde beer. Let's do this.
That weirdly, to me, as having only been out to California once, that very weirdly just screams California to me.
Does it? I love that.
It's weird. I don't know. Like, my one time going out there was, it was interesting because, like, I think the thing for me is, and even in doing this, I think it's kind of afforded me interesting perspectives on different territories geographically, but also how others, maybe not from the States, view us. And I think, like, famously, I had the singer from Future Palaces on a while ago, and at the time she was really looking forward to going to California and visiting her sister. And California in the US is this land of opportunity and all these things. And it's weird because that's not necessarily how I view it living here and have lived here my whole life. So it's interesting to kind of get someone else's perspective. Now, taking it a step further, being from the East Coast originally, living here in the Midwest most of my life now, but then going out West, I have a little bit of like my East Coast tendencies of things got to move quickly and we're fast paced and we talk quickly and move quickly, versus the Midwest where we kind of don't necessarily have our own thing. We kind of get what comes to us from either end, kind of in a, I don't want to, well, with the internet and the way everything moves now so lightning quick, it doesn't take quite as long to get some of the culture from either ends to us. But I definitely felt out of place out West. And I feel like my biggest complaint about it was just, it didn't seem like a place that, like, everyone was just kind of too chill for me. And I feel like that was sort of a thing, like, famously, I think I've kind of told the story where it's like, even going out to eat, we were at this like pizza spot where we could eat outside, no servers, no nothing. And I went to bring in our dishes and stuff. And we were done. And the manager's like, "What's wrong?" And I go, "Nothing." And he was just like, "Oh, someone was going to get that." And I was like, "Well, I can bring it in." Yeah. And he was just like, made me feel like that I was silently upset about my service. And that's why I was, I don't know. That's just how I felt. And we ran into that a few other places. Like, everyone was just like, if you were trying to like be nice and bust your own stuff and take care of your own things, they were just like, "What was wrong? Someone will do that for you." And it's like, I'm more than capable, man. Like it's fine. Or, just even like, I think for me, I know there was the time difference, but it's like the fact that like nothing really starts or happens until like noon or beyond. It's like, we're wasting time. Like this is
Totally,
time to be doing stuff and
totally.
be productive. So it just was a different environment. And I found it to be, and I'm sure over time it's something you kind of get used to and
Mhm.
kind of settle into. But I think for me, it was just kind of a little too laid back for my taste. I think I'm a little too high strung for the West Coast.
I find the East Coast like super abrasive.
Mm.
Um, it's definitely like not that. I mean, a lot of people on the West Coast are maybe like way too woke, but uh, there's definitely, I think there's people seem to be a little bit friendlier and in touch with, I don't know, their emotions. Maybe that's not the right description, but I find the East Coast like super hard and super abrasive, and probably something to do with like some kind of childhood trauma. But I'm always like, what have I done wrong? Have I done something wrong? Like, have I upset you? So there's definitely a tone communication difference for me between the two sides.
Well, I think what's been funny is even like yesterday, hanging out with a myriad of friends in different kind of social circles and so forth yesterday. But one of them happened to be someone I just met in the last like year and a half that's from Philly. So he and I like instantly hit it off. And it's been funny because our relationship is just cracking on each other all the time. And I forget sometimes because I made one of my friends who I guess had a real bad day kind of like start on the verge of tears. And I was like, I'm just fucking with you. Like, I'm not being serious at all. Like, I'm playful ribbing. And it was a thing where it's been discussed somewhat recently. Like, some people are like, oh, I don't think John likes me. And it's like, if I don't like you, you really gonna know I don't like you?
Hang
Because
on.
I'm not gonna pay you any attention. It's just not worth my time.
Yeah,
If I playfully rib you or like make fun, that's what we do. It's just kind of
yeah.
a thing. It's like its own love language of sorts. So it's always kind of funny how some people will take it differently. But I always seem to find my people, like East Coast people, are kind of, I'm just like right back into the swing of things with people from out there.
Do you find like there's a difference in the beer, the craft beer scene from the East Coast to the West Coast?
So what's been interesting, I'm a little biased because I live in a state that, or I live in a city that has won Beer City competitions since they started doing. I think out of like the 10 plus years they've been doing it, I think we lost twice to a bunch of different people. And I would say in my travels, like one of my good friends lives out in Oregon, now Washington, but still out in the Pacific Northwest. And that was always who we would kind of come close, like a runner up to, or would be the runner up to us for winning this like nationwide contest. And when I finally got out there, I was really excited to try all these beers. Everyone's like, we're the best. We're the best. And to me, I'm spoiled here in Michigan because I feel like we do crazy things where it's like, like there's a beer that's from a brewery about 45 minutes from me called Pigeon Hill Brewing, and they do like an oatmeal cream pie beer. And it's a light beer, but they put, I think it's 50 or 75 pounds of marshmallow fluff into the beer. So it tastes like an oatmeal cream pie.
Crazy.
Super delicious. There's another brewery I found randomly at like a beer fest that did a snickerdoodle beer that was absolutely delicious. We do like, there was a brewery that doesn't exist anymore, but the guy did like a double bubble gum IPA. So he
Wow.
put like 100 pounds of double bubble into the beer. Like, we take crazy ideas and risks, I feel, out here. And I feel like that's the thing that's adventurous to me. Like you were saying, don't make something that already exists, do something
Yeah,
that hasn't been done. And I
yeah,
feel like we're very spoiled out here with that.
yeah.
And when I went out and in most of my travels, like I'll at least speak to the Pacific Northwest area where I feel like everyone was just making a good mainstay beer. You made a porter and it is really good, but you didn't do anything to elevate it in any way, shape, or form. You just made one.
Right.
And to me, that's boring.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think in my traveling, that's been the fun thing of, really kind of getting a sense of local flavor of an area, and even extending to like craft cocktails. Like I love going to a good cocktail bar on my travels and just being like I don't, and famously, I'll just go to, if someone And it kind of throws a lot of people because I think they want boundaries and I think they want parameters. Same within music, I think, to a degree, where it's like when you go to someone and you're like, make me something. And some people don't like the just wide openness of that. And so sometimes I'll have to rein it in a little bit and be like, there's a cocktail bar here that I'll go to. And I'm like, I'm feeling tequila. Let's go smoky and maybe some chocolate or
Wow, that's crazy.
something like that. Like, and I'll just do that. I'll kind of give them a few parameters and go,
Yeah.
make something.
Yeah.
And to me, it's always infinitely better than just give me an old fashioned, give me a French 75, give me a whatever, because it really pushes the creativity of that person
Mhm.
and really expresses them in a way that I think almost like with music and song, where it's like, I'm getting the best out of you because I'm giving you the ability to not be confined to, okay, it's got to be a rock ballad. It's got to be 2.5 minutes. I need a traditional, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, bridge, chorus, outro, done.
Yeah.
Like, that's not going to get the best out of you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to me, I feel like that's what I've noticed when I go exploring beers, exploring the craft cocktail world and so forth. I feel like the best things are where people just get to be kind of like no parameters put on them. Just make something, be adventurous.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I would say, food wise, I'm a very adventurous person. Drinks wise, I don't really have a sweet tooth. So I would never go for something that had like extra sugary, chocolatey. So this tartness is just, again, coming back to the psychology, I guess, behind our beer is something refreshing and crisp, and that I could drink 10 of and not feel full. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of that time, even Bud Lights, or Modelo's, it's like after 6 of those, it's like I'm full. There is still a heaviness, and I think I've drunk a lot of NA beers, and I find them very thick. Like I find a lot of them heavier than what I would like them to be for a light beer. So this was just really, again, finding something that's a completely different flavor profile that people can drink many of. Because
Right.
how many Guinnesses can you really have in one sitting?
The average person or me.
Okay, John.
I mean, that's literally, a lot of people are always like, I don't know how I gained like a bunch of weight so quickly or whatever. And for me, I can pinpoint it to one holiday or one winter, because we get bad snow here. And at the time I worked at Sam's Club, so it was super convenient to just get a like case of Guinness.
Oh my
And
Lord.
then I bought the stuff to basically have White Russians and Irish car bomb. So between a winter of that, I packed on about 25 pounds of just between drinking Guinness all the time.
Yeah, and that's also coming back to this, is like I've always been a calorie conscious person. So if this is 40 calories a can, which is the same as or less than a shot of tequila, which I think is 60 calories for a shot.
We were just talking about that yesterday, actually.
Somewhere
I think
around,
it's 70. I think it's 70 something, 75 maybe.
yeah, somewhere around that. So it's like, again, just really thinking about all of these things that go into being us. And these are our brand new prototypes that I just got. You are the first to see them. Oh, headbang, no hangover. These are brand new.
Oh, the top. Got it.
The can that you have is
Yeah,
the first edition collector's can. And then this is how we're just printing 24,000 of these. So this is what the new can looks like that you will be seeing all around the country very soon.
So twofold, because I've actually been talking quite a bit about how crazy the NA space has just blossomed in like the last, I'll say seemingly 2 to 3 years, kind of around the pandemic, honestly, is when it seemed like it started becoming more of a viable option for people, and not just here's your Heineken NA, here's your here's your, Guinness NA. Although that one was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I was very intrigued to try that, given the fact that it's just like, how do you make a thick stout NA? Like, I just feel like it'd be really thin or
Great.
gross.
It's
But it's been crazy to see, and I think like half the time now, I mean, even like with this, like I had Willie Adler from Lamb of God when they did theirs with Brewdog, and I took the first sip and I was like, "There's no fucking way this is an NA. Like it's just it. There's no way."
yeah.
And it's crazy to see how far it's come because I feel like when I was doing a sober few months, just for shits and giggles, it was crazy. I really enjoyed the fact that everywhere had the Heineken NAs for an option for people to
Yeah.
feel still involved with friends that want to go to bars and hang out. But I will say after I think a week, I was done with Heineken NA as a flavor. Like I was tired of it. And so it's been great to see, brands like Athletic Brewing Company, brands like, Guinness, even Corona now, and so many others, that it's like, I feel like those mainstay brands that we're so used to seeing in bars, that now I think it's kind of helped pave the way for I'm sure for you to maybe have someone take a chance on something like this, to put it into a bar and into retail space, because the space now is expanding so much that people would be, yes, this is selling. And I think it's like like a perfect time to get into doing something like an NA, because now you're creating an alternative that's underground, away from the main big companies that we're all used to seeing. So I feel like it's probably got to be nice to see so many brands starting to get into this space for you to be like, right time, right place. And we're right at the forefront of it all.
Totally. Beer sales are going down and non-alcoholic sales are going up. So I feel like we're right at like the cusp and the intersection of something very powerful happening, because this is again thought out about what we wanted our product to be. It's kind of like almost a hybrid between a seltzer and a beer.
I was gonna say, I could almost see this initially, if you didn't go blonde, I could see this being a seltzer as well.
Yeah, totally. And we do have plans to do a non-alcoholic seltzer moving forward. So yeah, it's really exciting to see the response. People are really drawn to it emotionally, actually, because I feel like our demographic and our community of the hard rock and metal community are like, we feel seen. Like we don't, and this is not, KittiePig is not about being sober or not drinking. It is about having more options for festival goers, fans, for health conscious people. Not every day do you want to be slamming Jack Daniels like for the whole day. It's like sometimes I augment my nights with KittiePig. So it's like shot of tequila, KittiePig, like water, have a KittiePig, shot of tequila. So it's just, we're not 20 anymore. I'm not able to like a bottle of whatever it is and then and be functioning the next day. And funnily enough, Gen Z is not even interested in doing that. Like 60% of Gen Zers, and this is like factual data, they're choosing non-alcoholic beverages over alcoholic. It's wild.
Well, I think even my time, I mean, I know you don't know this, like I worked in a bar somewhat recently after kind of in the outskirts of the pandemic, working door at a bar, the bar I go to all the time. And it was really interesting because as the door person, I don't talk a whole lot when I'm working the door, which surprises a lot of people, but talking over that much volume consistently for that many hours, like you just blow your voice out. So it's just not worth it. And honestly, becoming kind of the eyes and ears of the bar, it was interesting to see. And I've actually been talking to a lot of people about this, friends that have been in the industry for a while, about how the changing landscape of this new generation of bar age drinkers is kind of coming in. Like, it's wild to me, first and foremost, that you'll have people that are coming in groups of 7 or above. And to me, I'm always like, my wife and I joke, it's like, how the fuck do you have 15 people with you? Like, it would be a struggle to not pre-plan like a week or two out, to be like, all right, 5 of us are like, to wrangle 5 people at once would probably be a struggle.
Totally.
So the fact that you see these groups of kids constantly going out in these larger groups is interesting. But it's also, I feel like, because weed now is so readily available and legal in most states now, it's been interesting to see that most people you'll get a group of kids and there might be, out of like the 7 or 8, 2 of them are having a White Claw or a High Noon.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 1 or 2 of them are even sharing the one, and they're just kind of winding down with weed or whatever for their night. And it's kind of wild because we were also talking about, it seems like this new age of bar patrons is less aggressive. And that was what I pinned it to, is I was like, I think it's because you're not drinking heavy beers and just getting bombed drinking pitchers of beer and then throwing up because you have so much of that stuff in your stomach. You're not drinking hard liquor nearly as much as everyone used to, or I still tentatively do, and stuff like that. And I think even myself, like with, the advent of, my thing more lately in the last couple of years has been this thing called long drink. But founders dumped a shitload of money, over, I think, $1 million plus into it. So it's kind of a very regional thing for us.
Drink?
It's called Long Drink. Miles Teller, the actor, is like co-owner of it now.
Check it out.
Yeah. I don't know if it's out in California yet, but it's a thing where when White Claws and things like that started being a thing, I would be more apt to have one of those and, like you said, do a shot. And so when people would be like, "You're drinking a fucking White Claw?" And I'm like, for every one of these you see, I've had at least 1 or maybe 2 shots to go with it. This is my social drink, my light, easy drink.
Yeah.
The other one, kind of the one that's going to get me there if I want to get to that level. But I think, like, again, I'm starting to notice the change in how people are drinking and what they're drinking. And it just kind of was really interesting to see how I think a lot of weed has been just such a crazy factor now. And I think people, like you said, are kind of becoming more health conscious. Like, I think it's funny, Michelob Ultra's whole branding and marketing is, after you get done working out, have one of these because it's like 64 calories. And you're like, that's the last thing I want to do after going to a gym, is just slam a beer.
Yeah, right?
It seems counterintuitive, but that's their whole marketing and branding. It's just very weird.
Yeah.
So I think, to me, like even, I think people, like I said, are changing how the behavioral relationship with these things. So it makes sense to have something that's lighter, because I think from a sales standpoint, I think if you had something and went more of a heavier beer, I think you would see a decline in sales, because people are going to be like, I bought a 4-pack, I had one, now I'm full, I don't need to buy another one.
Yeah, exactly. It definitely, I think also, to add to that, is that seeing the change that people are willing to pay more for a better product. Like, I mean, I think about in my 20s, I'm like, what's the cheapest thing I can get? I don't really care how it affects me. Like, that was the mentality. And now people are like, we would rather pay $11 for a beer while we're out and have one and enjoy it and be good to our bodies and feel better. Yeah. So it's like, it's such a crazy shift in the world. Like, what a time to be alive. Crazy.
Well, I think, like, even that's been really interesting to see too, is I had read something a while ago about how places like McDonald's and Burger Kings and stuff like that, like your traditional fast food, are going by the wayside, because everyone was, and I forget the actual term, but it was like something called like fast fine dining, or something, not fine dining, but something to that effect, where basically it's like people are willing to pay more for something that's better. And it really bucked what everyone thought data-wise that would be the information, because it's like, well, everyone wants the cheapest thing because you want your money to go further.
Totally.
There was something in the last, I guess it's probably our generation, where we're like, tired of McDonald's. It just makes me feel sluggish. It's gross and it's not great, or any of these foods. And it's like making something elevated and being better. And it's like, I'd rather pay the extra for a nicer thing.
Totally. It's so great to see, like, the maturity and the change in the generations. And it's exciting, because I feel like KittiePig really has a fighting chance to do something out there. And I had such a wonderful chat to somebody this morning, and he was just saying he's a father of 3 daughters, and he made me quite emotional, because he was like, this is just so empowering to me that you and Morgan as women have started this brand that feels like, and they're a metalhead family, so that feels like me and my family, that I can go out with my daughters and I can have a beer, not get buzzed, and still feel like I'm a part of it. And I was just like, I got really emotional. I was like, wow, we're doing this right. Like we're starting to get that emotional connection with the demographic and the audience. So it's exciting to see. It's baby steps. I mean, we're still crawling at this point.
I mean, obviously with beer landscape being so thinking far ahead and especially seasonal, because right now we're technically in spring. So spring, you're thinking lighter things and stuff like that. When you get into fall and winter, obviously it's more of your heavier IPAs or mainly stouts and porters and stuff like that. Are you conscious of that? Or are you kind of already planning to where maybe you have at least one beer to start per season? Is that because you're already saying you're going to do the seltzer, but are you trying to be more conscious of, seasonal output and releases in that space?
Right now, I mean, definitely in the future. Right now, we're focusing on one SKU. It's a heavy load just to start this up, and currently, it's pretty much a factory of one happening. So we're really just getting this up and started. But I think a variation for sure is going to be a part of the power of this brand, is for people to be able to buy a 4-pack that's a mixed variety. And as we get more feedback and data, we'll be at Sick New World this weekend, and we'll get some great feedback and data from people drinking and on the flavor profile, just to really see what people want more of, if they like this, what they would change about it. So we're definitely open. We're big collaborators.
You just actually made me think of something.
Sorry, John, can you give me 2 seconds? Let me just I've got another meeting at 2 and I just want to push it.
Yeah.
How much longer do you think? How much longer do we?
I was pretty much gonna kind of ask you this as like my last question and then start wrapping up.
15 minutes behind.
Yeah.
Jump on soon. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good.
Perfect. Let's go.
Great to be in demand. It means people want to talk to you. So. I was gonna say, this might be a weird question. What is been maybe, I don't know if easier is the phrase I want to use, but that's the only one coming to mind. But which is the easier form of criticism to take? Is it easier to take criticism over this or a song that you've worked on?
Probably the beer,
okay.
Because again, I don't think everybody has an opinion. There is going to be a million opinions. Everybody's going to give you feedback. And it's really, you have to be conscientious about who you're taking feedback from. So I think a lot of people can tell you that that's the greatest song in the world, and the complete opposite can be true. Some people could tell you that they cannot stand the taste of this beer, and the complete opposite could be true. So I think it's really about standing behind songwriting, artistry, production. It's your art. It's about putting out what you are. And for the beer, it's exactly what it is for us. It's like, do we care if people like it? Yes, of course, because we want this to be something that people want to drink. It doesn't make sense to have a yucky product. But at the same time, we are so happy with it, and the response of people within our trusted circle has been so positive, that we're just going for it. I think it's a lot about having a dream, and ideas is about blindly believing in your idea, right? Just like blindly believing in your band, like throwing shit at a wall and see what sticks. And sometimes you just have to do that. And this shit is sticky.
Absolutely. Last question for you. Where can everyone find you, or anything you would like to plug online?
You can find KittiePig. It's KittiePig.com. So go check out the website. You can follow KittiePig on Instagram too. And if you want to find me, it's Esjay Jones 1. It's ESJAY Jones 1. And of course, you can follow We Are Pigs Band on online and Instagram and all the things. We got some fun collaborations coming out for the rest of the year too. So excited to share that in pairing with the beer.
All right, awesome. I'm trying to get Terry to do one of these soon, so maybe I'll have to like if he's a part of that process on the next whatever the We
Oh
Are
my
Pigs
gosh,
is doing.
amazing. Yes, I'll give him a little poke and tell him to jump on.
Absolutely, that'd be greatly appreciated. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for sending this to me, and have fun at Sick New World. I'm really jealous. I didn't not being able to go.
I wish you were going to be there with us, slamming all these kitty pigs and head banging. It's going to be amazing. So appreciate you so much, and thank you for you never told me what you think.
It's really good. Like I said, it's I think the flavor initially takes, for me as someone who doesn't drink a lot of berry things, the flavor takes a little bit to kind of get used to. But like you said, even because I'm just about done with this can, the flavor kind of sticks around, and it actually is interesting how the flavor gets a little bit sweeter and kind of goes from kind of being more of a back end flavor to kind of almost more of the predominant flavor up front, the forward flavor, while also kind of just being light and refreshing. So it's kind of different in that regard, because usually either when you get a flavor of something, either whatever the flavor is, berry or whatever, it either sticks to the front, sticks to the back, and kind of washes away for the rest of it. So the fact that this lingers somewhere in the middle, and as you said, kind of grows on the palate, it's almost like it takes a little bit, especially since most of us have never had Saskatoon berry before, that I think it just takes a little while for your palate to kind of get used to the flavor on your tongue.
Totally. And
really
trust
good.
me, by the time you crack your second one, it's like you're just like, whoa, I love this. And I think that's kind of cool that you can grow into it.
Yeah. Yeah, I would be very interested to see either how you, and maybe that becomes sort of the trademark of the brand, of finding ways to put it into something maybe that you wouldn't expect. Like in my head, I'm like, wonder how that'd be like in a porter. Like that kind of a flavor, like balancing off of something else. Like, maybe like making like a PB&J Saskatoon J kind of thing or whatever. Like it has me intrigued on how the flavor could be morphed to something else. So to me, like that's kind of, like I said, that's why I enjoy trying different things, because it's like, all right, like what does this do? And kind of last thought from me on it, I think it's also the interesting thing, and Mark, like I said, from Nothing More and I talk about this quite a bit, where when you are used to like peanut butter in a beer, peanut butter is a really interesting flavor because it doesn't, most of the time when you ask someone what's peanut butter, what does it taste like, most people will tell you they immediately go to a Reese's peanut butter cup, chocolate and peanut butter. Well, that's not peanut butter.
Yeah,
that's chocolate and peanut butter, or PB&J, and it's like, well, that's not peanut butter either. So it gets interesting when you start breaking down what a thing it means to someone when you ask them, and to see how that gets represented in a flavor profile in beer. It gets really interesting to see how someone can take the same idea. I'm making a peanut butter stout. Okay, well, yours is chocolate peanut butter. This person's is something else. This one is more creamy. This one is more kind of a thicker taste, for lack of a better term. So it always just gets really interesting to see how people take in the same information and then put it to execution. And it's like, to me, that's really fun. So taking something that people aren't used to, like a Saskatoon berry, now I would want to be like, all right, well, how can I introduce it in another way that maybe you wouldn't expect it? And so to me, that would be intriguing as a thing, maybe like to start off where it's like, all right, KittiePig isn't always going to be Saskatoon berry, but maybe for the first season, the first round that we're going to do, we're going to put Saskatoon berry in and find a way to do it. And that's the first iteration. The next variant we're going to have a new flavor, and we're going to go a different way. And we're always going to keep you on your toes with new and exciting flavors that you maybe don't know of and wouldn't expect to be in something.
Totally. Always evolving, forever learning. So yeah, I really appreciate your feedback, and thank you so much for having me on and talking about our brutal NA, our easy drinking yet brutal NA. Cheers.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much.
too. Thank you so much, John.
So that was my conversation with SJ Jones. Want to thank her once again for taking the time, for having a Kitty Pig beer with me. It's been interesting actually to see the development of how Kitty Pig is done. I mean, I didn't realize that the cans basically that I had gotten, that Matt had gotten, that they had sent out to us ahead of doing press with them, that basically those are now limited edition cans. The way they're redoing the branding, I should say the packaging, but I guess it's branding, for the cans is going to be like a second series essentially. So if you have one of the cans that first came out before they sold out, then you now have a collector's item, like she said. But it was really cool getting to rip a drink of the Kitty Pig with her. If you would like to pick up some Kitty Pig, don't forget to go to KittiePig.com. You can have it shipped to you. That is kind of the really nice thing about a non-alcoholic beverage, is that essentially it can go anywhere in the U.S. I believe Canada as well. I should have looked into that a little bit more, but I would assume if Matt got one and he lives in Canada, then obviously that shouldn't be much of a problem. But just check on, like I said, KittiePig.com. Look to get some stuff for yourself or for somebody else, maybe that is into the NA space, is a fan of Kittie, is a fan of We Are Pigs, is a fan of both. That's the great thing about beer and things like that, fun things to try. It's always just a welcome gift to give to somebody. I know I'm looking forward to a friend of mine coming back from the Oregon area and bringing some beers, as I usually do, or some local liquors, and trying that kind of stuff. So always fun to indulge, or not, obviously with an NA beer. That's the whole point of them. You can enjoy them and you don't get the hangover, but you still get to be social. I know for a while, the last time I was doing the, as you heard me say, doing the sober trip for a little while, it was really awesome to just see how much the space has grown in the last handful of years. However, I do wish more bars would get into having something other than Heineken NAs, because I got real over that flavor very quickly. But I am starting to see a lot of bars getting into, like, the athletic brewing is a big one that I'm starting to see more places. But we even here in Grand Rapids, actually, just in the last 2 or 3 years, I think right out of the pandemic, essentially there's a place that is just nothing but non-alcoholic stuff. So maybe if I'm go down there at some point, I should maybe point them in the direction of getting some Kitty Pig as well, and kind of expanding into the band branded space that a lot of spirits and so forth are getting into. But want to thank SJ once again for taking the time. It was really cool getting to talk producing, beer making, working with so many different bands and artists and so forth, and just kind of seeing how her brain works in that capacity. I was actually thinking about her, knowing I would be doing this intro and outro earlier today. For the last few weeks, I've had some various technical difficulties with some of my gear. For those that don't know, typically I end up running a 2-screen setup, and for whatever reason, one of my monitors went down. That kind of sucked. I figured out a way to then send it to the TV that I have over my monitors that I usually watch TV or play video games on in my office, and I was good until today when I got ready to do this, and for whatever reason, the monitor I was using didn't work. And so I was like, oh, this is so frustrating. I troubleshot everything. The monitor that wasn't working previously, I hooked up to my video game system, so I knew it was working. It's obviously some sort of a thing with the computer that I use. I don't know. I'm not very tech savvy. So when the other monitor went down, I tested it out the same way. It still worked. I was like, okay, back to the drawing board. Let me reinstall kind of all of the different drivers and stuff like that that I use to do this. And then thankfully everything worked until I went to plug in my external hard drive, and for whatever reason, it's not connecting to the main computer at my desktop. Works in my laptop, so I know it's not fried or something wrong with that. But it has been a little trying over here. And I was thinking about, because in the photos on SJ's social media stuff, that's her working on various mixing boards and all that kind of stuff. And I just kept thinking to myself, it would be so stressful, in my opinion, to be working on those things, because I feel like there's just so much that could go wrong. or something that gets fried and needs to be replaced, and a lot of this stuff isn't cheap, so it's just super stressful. And I was thinking about, like, I don't even know how I would interact or deal with things like that. Like, if, here it's only probably 4 or 5 pieces of equipment, but seeing her studio setup and all that, I'm like, that looks like a nightmare for things to go wrong and troubleshoot and figure out. And I don't want that. So all that said, let's start wrapping up this episode. If you would like to keep up with SJ, you can find her on Facebook at SJ Jones Productions, or you can find her at We Are Pigs Band on Facebook. Instagram is going to be at KittiePig for the beer, SJ Jones 1 for her own accounts, and Twitter is going to be KittiePig Beer, and Twitter for herself is going to be at SJ Jones. Also, you can go to the website, like I said in the intro, kittiepig.com, pick up some of the beer, or to keep up with what's going on with sjjones.com. If you'd like to keep up with the podcast, simple enough, follow us at BrewSpeakPod on all your major social media platforms. If you'd like to email me, brewtallyspeaking@gmail.com. Rate, review, subscribe. You know why that is important. Please do it if you can. The feedback I've been getting lately has been awesome. Last handful of episodes have been doing really awesome. Thank you so much to everyone who is taking the time to listen to them, to message me, to keep the conversation going. It is greatly appreciated. Who knew? 7+ years in is when everyone would finally start commenting on things. So it's a little bit getting used to, but it's also very awesome to know that people are vibing with the episodes and the guests and so forth. So keep it coming. And lastly, want to thank Rockabilia for their continued support of the podcast. Head on over to rockabilia.com. Check out what they got going on over there. Lots of collaborations with your favorite artists. New stuff always coming in, and if you scour their site, I'm sure you're bound to find maybe even a piece of merch from the band that you love from a while ago. I know, like, they used to have some really cool Poison the Well merch from way back, as well as some old ETID merch. So if you have some time, peruse the internet, go to their website, take some money off of your order for whatever you would like to buy over there. I swear there's probably something you will find if you take the time that you will be like, you know what? Like that... like that scene in Napoleon Dynamite when they're selling the Tupperware and then bring out the ship and they're like, I need that. That's what you're gonna do. You're gonna say, I need that when you're looking at Rockabilia's website. Use our code BREWtally at checkout, take 10% off your total purchase order. Let them know that we are sending you there and supporting them for supporting us and for the Brewtally Speaking podcast. I am John, and I will see you all next week with the returning Scott Lee, founder of the New England Metal and Hardcore Festival. We talk all about this year's lineup, some of our favorite bands, and just some other things going on with bands, the tours that we've seen over the years and so forth. Really great chat, really great dude. Can't wait to see you all again next week with him. Enjoy the rest of your week. I'll talk to you then.